biology at the University of Idaho. And I'm going to talk about implementing models of biological evolution in video games. And before I do that, I want to start by talking about one of the first invasive species events in the history of the planet. It started in 1976 in Japan, and very quickly spread across most of the developed world. And it had a catastrophic impact economically to many vulnerable demographic groups. So, of course, what I'm talking about is space invaders. And what I've learned is actually most of the people in this room right now are too young to know what space invaders. It actually caused major crime rates in Japan when it was released so teenagers could get orders to play. So anyway, this was, the reason I bring this game up is the first video game that I know of that featured a population of enemies that the player was pitted against. And the idea was you drove your little tank and shot them and eventually you died within the border. So I say this because this, for many, many, many thousands of video games that do feature populations of enemies that are pitted against the player. And all of them eventually die, it's fine, and they act on basic scripted behaviors. And I would like to say that we finally defeated this invasive species because they failed to adapt to our teenagers' ability to kill. But the question is, what if they could adapt? What if that was an evolving population? And that's what we're doing with the PT grant that we were recently. We established an evolutionary video game design studio staffed full-time by undergraduates in the summer. We're developing evolutionary video games. These are some of our graphics for some of the games that we've been working on, just because I've been complete. Now, many of you who, well, some of you probably know video games, some of you will get a social lifestyle, so probably not, are like, well, evolutionary video games have already been done, right? I mean, even back in the 80s, there was an Apple game called Evolution, right? And then evolving soccer players and combat, stuff like that. Games called Evolve and that, and there's evolution in the Pokemon. I kid you not. And it's been done a lot before, and it's been done spectacularly badly every 30 times. Okay? And that's really unfortunate. So the point is, evolution is being used to sell video games, but it sure isn't being used to demonstrate evolution, or video games aren't being used to demonstrate evolution. And I'd like to make this little plot, where we plot on the y-axis relative awesomeness of whatever you want. And on the x-axis, a different flavor of awesomeness. This would be like very gold standard of education, and this would be like, what? Right? And the problem is, most of these video games are some degree of awesome, and they actually reinforce fundamental misconceptions about how evolution works. And so, does that have to be the case? We think no. Now, I should acknowledge that there's probably a few people in the room that kind of just wandered into the wrong room or something. They're like, video game? That's like the horseless carriage. Oh my God! You know. And I invite you, if you're displeased with the idea of video games being used to teach, you could perhaps tweet your displeasure using any one of the following hashtags. Also, hashtag my back hurts. The point is, many of you have kids. I look around at many of you are kids. This is the new reality. 6.5 hours a day of screen time. And I know some of you are like, my kids will never do that. And I did all of my best parenting before I had children too. So good job, right? This is the new reality. And you know what they're doing? They're not only playing video games in record numbers, they're online watching other people play video games. It's like Inception. It's weird. Okay? These are all multi-millionaires, YouTubers, who play video games online, and your kids watch them. Okay? So in terms of access to children, video games, right? Also apparently Twitter is Snapchat. So our premise, we established a studio called Polymorphic Games, and the driving question is, can models of biological evolution actually make better video games? We're not really trying to make educational games as the first step, because those tend to not do super well. We're trying to make a better video game that is an immersive context in which evolution is just right there. And then you can layer educational things on top of it. You know? And so this is what we're trying. So our first entry, which is exactly 4 weeks old, we've been at this for 4 weeks with a very talented team of all undergraduates except for a project lead, who's a graduate student in virtual technology design. And you can see we drew from all over campus to try to pull this off. Programmers, artists, musicians, biologists, communications, English, video, documentary, blah, 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 right? We decided to name the game Darwin's Demons. Now, how many of you have heard of the Darwinian demon? Until about 3 weeks ago, I had not. Right? The Darwinian demon is a metaphorical construct of an organism who can optimize all aspects of its fitness simultaneously. Right? I think some people would argue that humans are the very first Darwinian demon. And then we thought, well, what better enemy for a video game than a Darwinian demon? Also, very cool name. So in order to introduce the game that we've produced over the last 4 weeks, I'm going to try to show you a video. This is actually from the pre-alpha build from a few days ago. So one of the things we try to emphasize is the player doesn't evolve, the player can upgrade things. So in this case, we're going to have him, it's me, I can't explain this name. Select ships that all have different features that we hope will drive different evolutionary outcomes. You can have different secondary weapons like satellites that shoot shields and turrets and stuff like that. And then this is the gameplay. This is a population of organisms. There are 65 after all of them finish coming in. They are sexually reproducing, diploid hermaphrodites, which you know all the triplets, something like that. All of the variation, you see variation, the first ingredient of evolution, is encoded by a genome. And so including movement behavior, where they want to be this way, the type of projectiles they have, their shape, all of that kind of thing when they come in. The genome is roughly 1,000 loci now. So we have inheritance because the genome is inherited, so that's good. And we also have selection. And the fitness function actually has 3 components. The first is, how accurate are they? So when fitness is going to come up here in a second, and it's going to say fitness component 1, accuracy. And it's about how close do they get to shooting the player. And they get a little bit of a bonus if they actually destroy it. And so this one, bad, that one, okay? The second fitness component that these organisms have is lifespan. How long do they live? So these individuals get a bigger fitness component for lifespan than the first ones to die. Third fitness component, vertical position. These two, if you actually look closely at them, this section here says, okay, so in relative terms, these two had very long lifespan fitness, for example, and this aggression fitness is how close they get to the player. Now I'm upgrading the crap out of my ship here because we want the player to make choices. The player's not evolving, right? The player's upgrading with the idea that we're driving an evolutionary arms race with the protein swarm, which is what the protein species does, stuff. And then we have time, the last ingredient of evolution. We have the next generation. This is done by using the fitness in tournament selection because evolutionary computation scientists love tournament selection. And you can see after 6 generations, we evolved something called a bullet hell, where, screw you, player, evolution. You can't win. Anyway, some balancing has to happen. So the idea is that the player experiences evolution because the aliens that are best suited to countering the player's strategy adapt and evolve and have more babies for the next generation. This is our logo for Darwin's Demons because it's like a finch with a tentacle. Because, yeah! I have tenure, so doesn't matter. Anyway, 4 weeks, a bunch of undergrads, that's what we did. Now, if you want to get your nerd on, the game, of course, produces tons of data that's suitable for ingestion into R. And what it does is it writes genetic values for all of the loci, the individuals, phenotypes, the generation, anything you want. They're constantly adding stuff to these gigantic data files and things out. And so I ran a few quick replicates because we haven't had this a ton of time, so I don't have some detailed selection gradient analysis or anything. So here are 3 replicates where what it is, I went in and turned off all the fitness functions. And I just played the game for 20 generations. This is a cool astronaut in our game that it's like concept art for artists. And you can see there's not a lot of evolution going on. This is generations, and this is a trait called dominance. Dominance, the higher it is, the earlier they're allowed to come in that wave. So the most dominant creature is the first one on the screen in that wave. And the least dominant creature is the last one. So the idea is we thought, well, we didn't really know what to think. Every time we think this is how it's going to evolve for sure this time, they're like, nope, no, not that way. Anyway, so this is what genetic drift looks like in the game. The colored dots are the different colors of the alien types, also encoded by epistatic the interactive glow style. You can see there's a big mixture of colors. You can't really say much about this. Here's when I turn the fitness functions on and play the game the same way. Oh, no, logo, wrong way. So we appear, we have to do some statistical tests, we appear to be selecting for increased dominance. This was tremendously surprising because what we thought would be like, things that are not. You get evolution, but it's unpredictable because of stochastic forces like drift. 65 individuals isn't a lot, or random mutation. By the way, one concession you have to make to the art here is the mutation rate pretty high. Alright, gotta go. Anyway, this is a graph that my student made just showing, for example, this type of ship drives red, this type of ship drives green. These are means of replicated runs. And then where are we headed? Well, in terms of the game, custom R scripts on the web, experiment mode, and a whole bunch of outreach type stuff for teachers. And then in terms of deployment, we're going to go to Steam Greenlight in a couple of weeks and add a whole bunch more cool stuff. And what I really need to tell you is that you can now download the alpha at polymorphicgames.com, and then either on Facebook or on Twitter, you can tell us, you got to change this. Why does it do this? Measure selection like this. Why, your population size is too big, too small, too ugly. I don't know. Anyway, if you know people that would enjoy trying this out and helping us out, like tell them about this website and have them download the alpha. Please, please, please. We would love some feedback. So, also high scores. I think next year I'm going to build this into a cabinet and bring it to court. At any rate, this is a preview to one of our future projects. This creature also has a genome. I will take questions.